make sure I do my alphabet correct. But we're going to bring on Kati Vilim. Hi, Kati. Am I pronouncing your name right? If not, please give us the correct pronunciation.
Yes, it is correct. Kati.
Fantastic. Kati. So take it away. Please tell us a bit about you as an artist, maybe how you became an artist, where you're at, a little bit about this work that was chosen for this exhibition.
Right. I am originally from Hungary. I studied in Budapest at the University of Fine Arts, and I arrived in Jersey, also studied at Montclair State University, and had a studio in New York for a long time. And last year I landed in Chelsea, so my studio is in Chelsea right now. My work, if we can, I don't know if you can see my work right now. I see myself on the screen. If you don't know my work is very abstract. I call it in a simple way just geometric abstract. Although I am not really supportive with art terminologies because I always think it's really hard to talk verbally about visual art, and art historic terms are not really covering what we see. So I am using very simple, basic geometric shapes, and I am creating these complex, more or less complex compositions to get the help of rhythm, ratio, structures, color, transparency. At a very early age in high school, I decided I would like to be an artist, and right away I became interested in abstract art somehow, in abstract work. And for a long time, I wasn't sure what's the reason for it, but at the same time, I also became interested in how the human brain works. And somehow, slowly, these two things was able to meet and grow together. And I realized how much who we are as humans depends on our ability to see the world in an abstract way. Like anything we see, some kind of outer reality, we translate it inside of us and then help with abstraction, because we are aware of it or not. The human brain works with abstraction. Like we are using languages, numbers, words, music or mathematics are all abstract systems, and this is how we function through our everyday life. So with this abstraction, basically, the right word is not abstraction. The right word.
I don't work with brushes. Sometimes I'll work with a squeegee as pictured, but I'm not a brush person. And I found that out very early in my life and in my career. When I started studying art in the late 70s in Minneapolis and St. Paul, I went to art school, and then I went to design school, and then I went to architecture school. And now I'm teaching for the past 30-some years at the New York School of Interior Design. I teach advanced color in the MFA and the BFA programs. I use gravity as my brush, so gravity pulls the paint down. If I work on very large canvases, I have an assistant or somebody actually holding the angle of the canvas so that I can get the pour and the color going in the direction that I need. These are some recent work that I did over isolation in New York. I was the only one basically working on my floor in the West Chelsea Artist Building. And I worked with a series. The painting on the left is French acrylics. They tend to be more transparent and they dry faster. The work on the right is all Dutch oil, and they dry in a very slow time. The painting on the right took about 4 months to complete. The painting on the left, about 1 month to complete. This was the group that I did over isolation. I did a third one that got a little bit more dreamy, more light coming through it. And again, French acrylic. So the colors and the transparency show from, and the memory of each pour shows through the entire work. This was a commission I did for a lobby at Recent. I did it for 200 East 57th Street for their lobby. I worked on it for about 2 months. It's a triptych that's over 25 feet long. And I had to work with the designers on fabrics. They gave me fabrics. They gave me materials of the lobby, the stone floor, the wall coverings. And they had a huge garden area in the middle of the lobby that was glassed in. And they wanted some of the colors that appear in the garden to come into the work itself. So we reviewed different plantings that were in the garden and different greeneries that were in the garden. They wanted that brought in. And this is what I came up with. Here's my studio here in San Diego. Actually, the shot on the left is very current. I'm working with some landscapes right now, also poured. The landscapes are about 12 colors poured at once. The painting on the right is more of an abstract work that you'll see in a couple of slides later. It's one color poured at once, and they're oiled. All of these works are oil. There's some of the works in progress. I'm actually doing these works for a client up in Boston who owns 5 different spas. So I'm doing a painting for each of the spas that he owns. He's a former collector of mine that's bought some work of mine maybe 10 years ago. There's one. And again, this is not finished. When I do pour all these works, I move them back and forth on the floor to get the feeling of the sky and the light and the water and the way that I want it to go. And after this is dry in about another week or so, I'll start editing it, adding things to it, making the form a little bit stronger than I feel, than it is right now. The painting on the ground, that's also poured. I worked on that so that the painting was almost very vertical, and I poured oil colors down the canvas, and I would have a puddle on the ground. And I got the idea from watching this guy in the subway, and he had on all these colors, every sleeve and every part of his body had a different color on it. And then on the bottom part, from his ankles down, he had black and white on, black and white shoes, black and white socks. And I thought, oh my God, that would make such a beautiful painting. So I did the black and white colors towards the bottom of the canvas, and then the full colors up on the side, and said that was my version of looking at that person. This was a work that's currently that I finished this year. It's been going on for 4 years. They're also oil pours, very dense and very thick. There's so many pours of color on this triptych, and 5 feet high, and it's 9 feet long. That the surface of the canvas actually feels like skin. It's very buttery because of all the layering that's been done on it and all the history. This was a work I completed for the New York School of Interior Design, their graduate program. This is their lobby when you come in, and the president at the time wanted me to do a work that would work with the Gensler design. I was commissioned to do 7 works for the William Hotel on 39th Street, Madison Avenue. So I did these. They're all oil pours. And I worked with the developer and told the developer that the hotel should feel like we're pouring color into the building. And he went for the idea. And I suggested that every floor has a different color. So we have the orange floor, and then there's a teal floor, there's a green floor, a pink floor. And actually in this particular commission, I did the paintings first, and the design and the designers worked the rooms around what I did rather than the art coming in at the end of the job, or if they had enough budget for it. So I was very fortunate to work on that for a year and a half. This was a restaurant down at 2nd Avenue and 12th Street. I told the owner of the restaurant that those white ceiling tiles need to go. And I said, I'll take them to the studio. And I did pours of color over them over a course of about 2 months. I brought them back and we installed them. And now it's sort of formed a communal spot, almost a magnet for people going to the bar and kind of floating above them. So the commission was for the ceiling. There's a job I did on 86th Street, another commission that's about 7 feet high, and those are French acrylics. The painting on the right is in oil. I like to do that a lot with suggesting when I'm working with designers is that we mix it so that in the same room, sometimes there's an oil piece and sometimes there's an acrylic piece in the same room, but that the colors work with whatever's going on with the design. It's a commission for an architect up on Central Park West, and the client loved this sort of aubergine color. Everything, if you saw the rest of the apartment, there's aubergine everywhere. So they commissioned sort of one of my more water diptychs in oil, and they poured carmine and deep rose and deep colors for the sky, and very dramatic work for them. There's another commission on Madison Avenue. The designer wanted the client to have something that, as he described, as fireworks and as a kaleidoscope of color that's going to invigorate the room. I remember his description to the client. I said, okay, well, I think I can do that. This was in the New York Times. This was another commission out on Montauk I did. And that made the cover of the Times when it had the location in the home section back in 2010, and some of the work in New York Spaces magazine. Recently, a sculptor gave me, I met at actually the New York Studio School, and we really enjoyed talking with each other, and we kind of jokingly said, well, we really need to do some work together. And one day he just rolled down the hallway in the West Chelsea building, and he brought these iron pieces that weigh 2 pounds less than a church, but he wheeled them in, brought them into the studio, and he said, just do what you want with them. So I started pouring colors on them, working throughout a couple of months, since the oil dries very slowly on iron. But it was really fun. That was kind of the end of it. And they're just actually in a state of drying right now. We want to continue our collaboration. I'm hoping he's thinking of doing works these are about 5 feet high. We're thinking of going 10 feet high and a little bit more, and really going for it.